To begin with our app, what we wanted to do is we wanted to generate an application, an AR application that autistic kids and kids with mental disabilities can use to kind of visualize personal spaces and what is acceptable for people that they consider family, people they consider friends, and everybody else. And so what we're envisioning, what we're starting with, is we want to develop an app where they can point their phone at a space and they can choose from 3 icons, one that says family with an icon depicting a family, friend, and then stranger, and they click one and it shows at the feet of the person how far away is acceptable. And then as they get closer, they can see a bubble around their feet, and as they get closer, if those two intersect, and it will flash and tell them that in somewhat fashion that they're at an inappropriate distance, that they need to back up a little bit.
One of the things we wanted to focus on is our minimum viable goal with this project, and for us that is to be able to show personal space using a visual thing in augmented reality. So we're going to create basically a circle around the user with different zones based off of people around you and what is acceptable. And that'll just basically create a visual guide for them to show where they should be in relation to people around them at any given time. And while initially it'll be kind of hard to define things, that'll be something that can be more exact as time goes on.
This is the culmination of all of our work on the storyboard. To kind of get a good idea of what the layout of the app would be like, each team member went through and made one themselves, and then once we decided what we liked out of all of those iterations, we went through and made this final storyboard to sort of explain what the app would look like before we started building it, so we'd all be on the same page. So here is the splash screen, and then the login and sign up screens, and then a sort of visualization for what the AR aspect would look like through the camera looking down at the kid's own feet, as well as a button that would allow the teacher or kid or parent or whoever it needs to be to access the app info and settings and change what they need to. So the whole idea behind this was just to be very simple, easy to use interface that kids could very easily and quickly pick up on.
Dr. Ellertson's biggest critique on our application was that it needed a social story, is what he called it. He needed something that the therapist could tell the child to get the child invested in the app. And so what I decided to do is write a script that we could put at the beginning of the app that could tell the child what the app's about and give them a reason to use the app the way we intended it. What I was going for when I wrote the script is I wanted to use a tone of voice that a young child could understand, but would also make them feel like they were being talked to by a companion rather than talked down to by an authority. So we were just about to start actual development on the programming aspect of the app when COVID-19 hit Idaho and Boise State went remote access. So we got together as a group because we had originally intended to make this app in Swift and had designed based on that fact. We talked about it, and all of the Mac computers that we were going to use were accessible through Boise State, and none of us actually had Apple equipment to continue development on the app. We decided to switch over to Unity so that we could continue working at home with as little inconvenience as possible, because we could all gain access to Unity, we could all contribute to it, and we all had the correct equipment to do that. Luckily, our design was simple enough that it didn't take very long to translate our design from a Swift-oriented app to a more generic AR-oriented app.
In this section, I will show you how these three toggles operate. In the code, I started by assigning the game objects for the different circle levels. I also assigned the appropriate audio clips that will play once whenever you check the corresponding toggle. In order for these audio clips to work, you also need an audio source. The isPlayed booleans tell the app whether the audio clips are already played, so they don't need to be repeated if the toggle is selected again. The start function makes sure the audio source is called to make sure the audio clips work. Then the toggle functions allow for the corresponding objects to play or become visible when the toggle is selected.
Alrighty, so this is the skip button script, and this works by calling functionality from the image switch script, which we have already written before, over here. And then we go over here and we have an event listener for the BTN skip intro button, which we have a game object for. We have a button for right here, and then a game object for the story slides. So I got ahead of myself, and that's just to store where we're going to be getting rid of and what button we're going to be pressing. And then down here we're listening for that button, and if it's pressed, then we will enact the skip introduction method, which is down here, and that will call the set active method and set it to false for story slides, which will deactivate it and make it invisible in the scene. So it will no longer be visible, and we can use the main functionality from the augmented reality application.